Well, hello again, guys. And yesterday we looked at this question: what is an engineering design process? And so we looked through the steps that an engineer would use to design a product. Then you had your little vocabulary assignment yesterday. Today you're not going to have an assignment, but what I want you to do is spend a little more time with me looking through a little digital lesson on the engineering design process that will review what we learned yesterday. Then we're going to actually look at a virtual lab of how we could design something ourselves. So let's get started with this. I want to kind of shrink myself here and go smaller, and I want you to listen to the video, and I'll just talk if I need to, okay? So here we go with a virtual lesson on the engineering design process.
Engineers follow a design process, which is a series of organized steps. To start this process,
I need to start it over.
First be identified.
Here we go.
Designers and engineers often want to solve several problems with one technology. The designers of the Sri Wawasan Bridge wanted to make a useful and beautiful bridge in Malaysia, a country in Southeast Asia. Click the highlighted areas of the bridge to see how a prototype, or a model, helps engineers with the design process. Then click the next arrow to learn more about engineers and the design process. The first thing engineers have to do is to understand their problem and then make a plan to solve it. This means engineers need to discuss many ideas. They talk about what is good about a particular idea and also what might not be so good about an idea. Once the engineers have decided on an idea they would like to try, they make a drawing of it. The engineers then build a prototype based on the drawing they made. When engineers work on a prototype, they write their suggestions for what materials to use, so the people who study the prototype will know what the real bridge will be made of. This type of bridge is called a cable-stayed bridge. This view shows how cables are used to support the bridge. The engineers designed the prototype to show that the bridge will have enough room for all the lanes of traffic. Not only will this bridge hold cars, it will also have room for people to walk and ride bikes. Welcome to the lesson, What is an Engineering Design Process? In this lesson, you'll learn how to use the design process to find a solution to a problem. The vocabulary words for this lesson are engineering, design, and prototype. Click each word to find out more about it.
We learned about them yesterday, so we're going to go on.
The engineering design process includes making designs, drawings, and sketches to help form an idea of the final product or solution. Engineers use different types of computer software to help them make these models. Some software includes advanced 3D modeling capabilities. This allows an entire ship to be built virtually before having to physically build the ship. Engineering is the application of science and math for practical uses, such as the design of structures, machines, and systems. Many of the things we use every day are designed by engineers. Click each image to see different examples of engineering and what the different kinds of engineers design.
Okay, it says architectural engineers design buildings. So fancy buildings, aren't they? Oops.
Civil engineers design things like roads, dams, and bridges. Civil engineers use science and math to make sure roads and bridges are safe enough to travel on and that dams will not collapse. Electrical engineers design electrical systems that can be used for many different things, from large buildings to small electronic devices. Electrical engineers make sure these electrical systems work properly to provide the electricity needed by the building or product. Mechanical engineers design and work with all types of machines used in everyday life. Mechanical engineers use science and math to ensure that machines, such as washing machines, cars, trains, and even simple tools work properly for the people who use them. Chemical engineers work in laboratories to produce and perfect new chemical solutions. Chemical engineers are responsible for making sure the right mix of chemicals is used for things such as paints, perfumes, and cleaning supplies. Aeronautical engineers design vehicles for flight and space travel. Aeronautical engineers use science and math to design planes, jets, helicopters, and rockets so they fly properly and will not malfunction. Environmental engineers combine principles of life science, earth science, and chemistry to solve environmental problems. Environmental engineers use science and math to help fix important problems like oil spills and pollution.
Which one of those types of engineers did you think was most interesting or that you might like to be when you grow up? I think I like the electrical. I would like to work with electricity and sound and things like that. How about you?
Engineers follow a design process, which is a series of organized steps. To start this process, a problem should first be identified. Some problems engineers might come across include how to make a building that meets particular needs, fixing a car engine design, and developing new products. Click the images to find out more about the steps in the design process. The first step in the design process is to find a problem. We encounter simple and difficult problems every day that we must solve. How might the student in the picture solve the problem of getting the book that is out of reach?
What would you do?
The second step in the design process is to plan and build. In engineering, we must plan a solution and then build it, just like this student must. The solution may be a product or a process to follow. The third step in the design process is to test the solution and then improve it if it solves the problem or meets the design criteria. Engineers test their solutions to make sure they work. Then engineers improve a solution that works.
His solution didn't work, did it? He stood on the box and it squished. So got to try again.
The fourth step in the design process is to redesign. If the original design does not work to solve our problem, we have to come up with a new solution. If the first design did work, this step can be skipped. After solving the problem, the final step in the design process is to communicate the results. Engineers communicate their results and solutions to other people who might have the same problem. Engineers may communicate their results using a computer, a telephone, or simply by talking to someone in person. Which of the following do engineers use? Click the images that show what an engineer uses to develop a practical solution. That's right. Engineers use technology, such as computer software, to help them design and build solutions. You got it. Engineers use math and drawings to help develop designs. Well done. Engineers use the design process to help them find and make solutions to problems.
Would they use a chemical engineer to help them find a practical solution? I don't think so. What if we click on it?
Good job.
I guess so.
Engineers use science to help find solutions.
Teacher was wrong.
You know that all the answers are correct. Engineers use the principles of science and math in the design process to solve problems. And engineers use technology, like computer software, to help them.
All right.
The first step in the design process is to find a problem. In the early 21st century, bottled water has become very popular. This has led to a lot of plastic bottles being thrown away, causing an environmental problem. Click play to see the size of this problem. Used plastic items, such as water bottles, are a large part of trash that is collected. Most of these plastic items are not reused or recycled.
There's a problem. You think they're going to show us a solution? Wow, look at all that.
Engineers have begun to design a solution for the overproduction and use of plastic water bottles. Click along the line to learn how engineers are using the design process to develop a practical solution to this problem. After finding a problem, engineers plan and build a design. A prototype, a model on which something is based, can be used for this step. Prototypes can be useful in developing and making changes to designs. Engineers made prototypes for reusable plastic bottles. The next step for the engineers was to test and improve their solution. Many people started filling their own reusable plastic water bottles washing them, and reusing them. Engineers paid attention to ways they could improve their solution as people used these new water bottles. These reusable water bottles slowed down the sales of bottled water, but there were still problems with plastic bottles. Some plastics contain chemicals that are thought to be harmful to humans. Engineers had to redesign these bottles to make them safer. After redesigning the water bottles so they were safer for humans, engineers communicated their results. The new water bottles were made available for people to use. This information was communicated through the news, radio, newspaper articles, books, and reliable websites. Engineers solve problems by following the design process, which involves using science and math. Describe an example of a problem that could be solved by the engineering design process and propose a way the problem could be solved. Type your response in the box, then click OK.
What do you think? Can you think of a problem that could be solved by the engineering design process? What do you think? How about, you know what I've seen? I've seen old tires stacked up in people's yards. What do you do with all those old tires?
Problems such as building the Golden Gate Bridge or transporting a large number of people to work through public transportation on a daily basis are examples of things that the engineering design process can solve. Solutions to these problems are developed by following the steps of the design process in order. These steps are to find a problem, plan and build, test and improve, redesign, and communicate the results. Some of these images include ways that scientists and engineers communicate. Can you determine which are methods scientists and engineers use to communicate and which are not? Sort the images into the two different categories by dragging each to the correct box.
All right, so this one looks like a comic book. Do you think scientists would use comic books to communicate? I kind of doubt it. A science fiction novel like Star Wars, would they communicate with that? I don't think so. Environmental science, they would learn more about the environment. Yeah, I would say so. Computer, sure, we email each other all the time, don't we? Magazine of science. Yes. The newspaper? Would scientists use newspaper to communicate? Maybe to tell about a new road that's being built to a community? Maybe. Yep. Advertising? Would scientists communicate that way? I think they could. Maybe if they wanted to, say, advertise some new products they had engineered. Nope, I'm wrong. And sports sections? No.
Good work. Scientists and engineers communicate through scientific periodicals, newspapers, and non-fiction books. Engineers do not use comics, fiction books, advertising images, or the sports page to communicate their results. Can you put the steps of the design process in the correct order? Drag the steps to their correct order in the design process.
Okay, so the first step, what is it? Redesign, plan and build, find a problem, communicate results, test and improve. It's find a problem, isn't it? First, we have to find the problem. And then what do? We plan and build, don't we? How are we going to solve this problem? So that's the second one. After we plan and build, we've got to test what we built, don't we? I think the third step would be to test it. And then the fourth step, if it doesn't work, we have to redesign it. Then the last step, once we've got it working, we communicate.
Good work. You know the correct order of the steps of the design process. First, you find a problem. Then you plan and build a solution. Then test and improve your solution. Then redesign, if necessary. And finally, communicate the results. You've learned a lot about the design process and how engineers use it to solve problems. Let's review the main ideas from the lesson. Engineering is the use of scientific and mathematical principles to develop practical solutions to problems. There are various types of engineers who do many different things in different fields. Some types of engineers include architectural, civil, electrical, mechanical, chemical, aeronautical, and environmental. The engineering design process has 5 distinct steps. These steps, in order, are to find a problem, plan and build a solution, test and approve the solution, redesign the solution, and then communicate results. Now that you've finished this lesson, if you wish, you can go back and review any part of the lesson again.
All right, so that was a review of what we learned yesterday. We're learning a lot about engineers. And what I want you to do now is go to the next slide, and we're going to have a little virtual lab. See you there.